Welcome back to the Night Shift. Episode 4. If you are new here, go watch episodes 1, 2 and 3 first. Links are right there. Trust me, you need them. If you have been here from the beginning, you already know what this is, and you're about to find out something about Mr. Martin that changes everything. Let's go. I have been trying to figure out how to tell you about this evening for a while now. Not because nothing happened, the opposite of that. Because too much happened, and some of it happened in the space between words, in the half second before someone speaks, and the half second after, in the small distances between two people that are either shrinking or staying exactly the same, and you cannot always tell which until it is already decided. This is the evening everything shifted. Not loudly, not with any of the drama that the word shifted usually implies. Just quietly, the way ice shifts in water, the way light shifts when a cloud moves, the way something that has been building for a long time finally reaches the point where it cannot stay where it is anymore and has to become something else. It was week 6, a Thursday. I arrived at 6 the way I always did, and Mrs. Adela met me at the door, which she did not always do. And the expression on her face was the calm expression she wore when something was happening that she had decided to be calm about. "He has a guest tonight," she said quietly. "Old acquaintance. Stay downstairs." I said I would. I meant it. The voices started maybe an hour into the evening. Not loud, the house was too thick and too old to carry voices the way thinner buildings do, but carrying enough that I could hear the shapes of them from the kitchen, where I was sitting with my tea and the ledger I was supposed to be updating. Mr. Martin's voice, low and controlled, each word placed with the precision of someone who has learned over a very long time that precision is the difference between a conversation and a confrontation. And another voice, older sounding, with an edge to it that I noticed the way you notice a change in air pressure before a storm, not a sound exactly, more of a quality. Something in the frequency of it that made the back of my teeth ache faintly. I updated the ledger, I drank my tea, I was staying downstairs, I had said I would, and I was. And then something broke, not a loud crash, a small sharp sound, glass on a hard surface, clean and definitive, and the silence that followed it had a different texture from the silence before it. Tighter, like something had been decided in the room above me. I was out of my chair before I had made a decision about it. Mrs. Adela looked up from the counter and our eyes met, and she did not say anything, and did not move to stop me, and I took the stairs quickly and quietly, and the voices were clearer now. The other one saying something I could not quite parse, and Mr. Martin responding in a voice so flat and so controlled that I had learned by now to read it as the opposite of calm. The study door was half open. I pushed it. The guest was silver-haired, older in appearance, sharp-featured, with eyes that were a color eyes were not designed to be, pale and cold and lit from somewhere behind them that had nothing to do with a lamplight in the room. He was standing near the window, relaxed in the way that something very dangerous is sometimes relaxed, with the particular ease of something that does not need to be tense, because tension is for things that are uncertain about the outcome. He looked at me when I came through the door. It was not the look that Mr. Martin gave me, that careful assessing reading. This was something else, something that moved over me the way a hand moves over an object it is considering picking up, evaluating, cataloging, deciding. I did not like it. I looked at Mr. Martin instead. He was standing near the desk. His expression was the controlled one, the flat one, every surface smooth and giving nothing away. But I knew his face now. I had been studying it for 6 weeks from careful 3-second intervals, and I knew its geography the way you know the geography of a place you have walked through many times, in different lights. And underneath the control, underneath the flatness, something was pulled very tight. Something was calculating. "Sorry to interrupt," I said. To the room in general, to nobody in particular, in the most ordinary voice I could produce. "Mrs. Adela sent me up. It is past 9. Tea is ready." It was the most mundane thing I could think of. I delivered it with complete commitment. The silver-haired man looked at me for a long moment, and then he smiled, slowly, with a great deal of something behind it that was not warmth, and said something to Mr. Martin in a language I did not know, low and deliberate, each word placed carefully, like something being set down that is intended to be found later. Mr. Martin said something back, short, final, the tone of someone closing a door. The guest set down his glass, not the broken one, a different one, and straightened his jacket and moved toward the door, and as he passed me, he stopped, close enough that I could feel the cold that came off him, not the cold of a room, but the cold of something that has not been warm for a very long time. He did not look at me. He looked at the room, at Mr. Martin across it, and said in perfect, easy conversational English, "Interesting taste." And then he was gone. His footsteps on the stairs did not sound like footsteps exactly. And then the front door, and then nothing, and the house exhaled around me like it had been holding its breath since he arrived. I turned around. Mr. Martin had not moved. He was standing exactly where he had been, hands still, face still, the lamp on the desk burning between us. On the floor near the side table was the broken glass, scattered in pieces across the dark wood, catching the light in small, sharp points. "Who was that?" I said. "Someone I have history with. Is he going to be a problem?" He looked at me. "No," he said. "I will ensure it." There was something in the way he said it that settled something in my chest that I had not realized was unsettled. Not a reassurance exactly, something more absolute than a reassurance. A statement of fact about something he had already decided. I crossed the room and crouched down and picked up the broken glass carefully, piece by piece, wrapping the larger pieces in the cloth from the side table. It was something to do with my hands. It was something ordinary to put in the middle of what had just happened. I worked through it methodically, and when I stood up with the pieces gathered, he was still in the same place, watching me with that expression I spent 6 weeks decoding and never quite finished. "Why did you come up?" he said. I heard something break. "That is not a reason to walk into a room with a—" He stopped. "With a vampire." I finished for him. He did not answer that. His jaw moved once. His eyes did something complicated. "You should be more careful," he said. "Probably," I said. "You should have a better lock." The corner of his mouth moved, just barely. And then it was gone, and the room was quiet again, and the lamp burned between us, and outside the city was dark and indifferent, and inside this room something was different from how it had been before I walked through the door, and we both knew it, and neither of us said so. "Tony," he said, just that, just my name, in a voice that was the same voice he always used, and somehow entirely different, like the same instrument playing a different note, like the same word meaning something it had not meant before. I looked at him. "Yeah?" I said. He looked back at me for a long moment. Something moved behind his eyes, unhurried, like something that had been waiting a long time and had learned patience, like something making a decision. "Be here at 6 tomorrow," he said. Not a task, not an instruction, not the way he said everything else, clipped and precise and professional, just "be here at 6 tomorrow." Like the only thing that mattered about tomorrow was that I would be in it. "Okay," I said. He nodded once and turned back to his desk, and I carried the broken glass downstairs and told Mrs. Adela everything was fine, and she looked at me with that expression she had been wearing for 31 years, and said nothing, and fed me, and I ate without tasting anything, because all of my attention was somewhere else entirely. I used the side gate on the way out. His key. The shorter route. I was halfway home before I noticed I was smiling, not a small, polite smile. A real one, the kind that happens before you decide to let it. The kind that lives in the chest before it reaches the face. I was walking alone down a dark, Korean street at 11:30 at night, and I was smiling, and I did not try to stop it. I called my mother when I got home, told her I was fine, told her the job was good actually, better than I had expected. She said I sounded different. I said I was the same. She said, the way she always does when she knows something I have not admitted to myself yet, and told me to eat properly and sleep enough, and I said, "Yes, Mom," and she said, "I love you," and I said, "I love you too," and I meant it more than usual, because it had been the kind of evening that makes you feel how much the people you love matter. I sat on my bed after and looked at his key on my nightstand. Small, plain, unremarkable. a piece of metal on a simple ring. I did not know what he was to me. I did not know what I was to him. I did not know what the space between us was called, or whether it had a name yet, or whether we were anywhere close to the point where names become necessary. But I knew that tomorrow at 6 I was going to walk through that gate. And I knew that he was going to be in that study. And I knew that something was different now from how it had been 6 weeks ago when I stood on a cold pavement holding a stranger's money and asked myself, how bad can it be? It was not bad. It was the opposite of bad. It was something I did not have a word for yet. Something that lived in the chest, in that quiet place where the true things wait before you are ready to speak them. And I was not ready to speak it yet, and I did not think he was either, and I thought that was all right. Some things are better held before they are spoken. Some things need to be felt for a while in the dark before they can survive the light. I reached over and turned off the lamp, but I did not move the key from my nightstand. Welcome to the night shift. I think I am going to be here for a while. I have been thinking about the word normal. Not in a philosophical way, not in the way people think about it when they are trying to sound interesting at parties, just in the very specific, very practical way that a person thinks about it when they are walking toward a Gothic mansion on a Thursday evening in the 3rd week of whatever this has become, and trying to convince themselves that everything is exactly the same as it was 6 weeks ago when they first walked through these gates terrified and certain they were going to die. Everything looks the same. The gate swings open the same way, smooth and silent, the motion sensor triggering the moment I step close enough, which I now know is a motion sensor because I have been here long enough to notice the small black panel on the left stone pillar that I completely missed on my first night because I was too busy being convinced I was walking into something supernatural to notice something as ordinary as a sensor. The path is the same, the fog is the same, the mansion is the same, enormous and dark and amber lit from within. The 3rd floor, window, dark, tonight, the way it sometimes is. The lanterns on either side of the front door, burning the way they always burn. Everything looks the same, nothing feels the same, and I think we both know it. I think that is actually the most terrifying part of where we are right now. Not that something has changed, but that we both know it has changed, and we are both standing on either side of that knowledge, pretending very hard that we are not. I have a system for this. I developed it over the weekend after the evening with Vincent, which I am going to tell you about properly in a moment, but the system is essentially this. Arrive at 6, do the work, drink the tea, leave at 11, do not think too carefully about the way he said. Be here at 6 tomorrow in a voice that was not giving an instruction. Do not think about it, do not examine it. Put it in a box and put the box somewhere very high up where you cannot reach it without a ladder, and then do not get the ladder. It is a good system. It is not working at all. Mrs. Adela met me at the door on Monday with food already plated and the expression of someone who had decided to say nothing and mean everything by saying nothing, and I sat at the kitchen table and ate and felt her not saying things very loudly for the entire meal. "How is he?" I asked finally. "The same," she said. "You keep saying that," I said. She smiled at her pot. "He is the same," she said, "and also different. The way things are when something has shifted underneath without changing on the surface." I thought about that for the rest of Monday evening. Tuesday was correspondence. Wednesday was the East Wing inventory, which I had been working through slowly for 2 weeks, cataloguing the contents of a part of the mansion that turned out to contain not ancient dark secrets, but approximately 400 years of accumulated furniture that nobody had gotten around to moving. There was a chaise longue under a dust sheet in the far corner that I was fairly certain had not been sat on since the 1700s, and I had developed a complicated fondness for it. Thursday was when it happened. I had finished the correspondence early. The house was quiet in its usual way, Mrs. Adela somewhere in the kitchen, Martin somewhere in the study, the mansion doing its thing of feeling like it was paying attention without doing anything you could point to specifically. I was putting the sorted letters back in their box when I heard a sound from the kitchen that I did not immediately understand. Not a bad sound, not a breaking sound or a raised voice or any of the things that had trained my nervous system to go alert in this house. Just a sound that did not fit, light and brief and completely incongruous in the way that a wrong note in a familiar piece of music is incongruous, noticeable, precisely because everything around it was so consistent. I put down the letters, I went to the kitchen doorway. Mr. Martin was standing at the counter with his back to me. Mrs. Adela was not there. She must have stepped out. He was wearing his usual the black dress shirt and dark trousers, the sleeves pushed up slightly, which I had never seen before, and which revealed forearms that were, I noted, and then immediately filed under. Do not think about this. Extremely well. Anyway, he was standing at the counter, and in front of him was a pot of instant noodles. Not the good kind. The kind that comes in a plastic cup and costs 400 won, and that I personally subsisted on for the better part of last semester. He was eating instant noodles alone in the kitchen at 8:37 in the evening, with what I can only describe as the focused private enjoyment of someone who has been eating something they are not supposed to enjoy and has made peace with that fact. I must have made a sound. I'm not sure what sound, something involuntary and small, because he turned around, and for approximately 2 full seconds, Mr. Martin, the most feared man in this city, the man whose name made Diana put down her coffee, the man whose mansion nobody entered and came back from, the man whose presence had cleared a street of 2 confident thieves without a single word, stood in his own kitchen holding a plastic cup of instant noodles and looked at me with an expression I had never seen on his face before. Caught. He looked caught. It lasted 2 seconds. Then the expression was gone and the composure was back, and he looked at me with his usual unreadable steadiness and said nothing. I looked at the noodles, then at him, then at the noodles. Mrs. Adela is out, he said. She left food, but it needed reheating, and I did not want to wait. Right, I said. The noodles were closer, he said. Of course, I said. He looked at me for a moment. Something moved at the corner of his mouth. You are not going to say anything, he said. It was not quite a question. I'm going to say absolutely nothing, I said, ever, to anyone. He looked at me for another moment, and then he did something that stopped my entire internal operating system for approximately 4 seconds. He laughed, not loudly, not the kind of laugh that fills a room, just a quiet, brief, completely genuine sound, low and warm, and surprised out of him like something that had not been used in a while and was slightly rusty from disuse. He looked away immediately after, back at his noodles, like if he did not acknowledge it, then it had not technically happened, but it had happened. I had heard it. I stood in the kitchen doorway of a Gothic mansion at 8:37 on a Thursday evening, and I heard Mr. Martin laugh, and something in my chest did a thing that I am going to need significantly more time to process than I currently have available. Mrs. Adela came back 20 minutes later and found us both sitting at the kitchen table, Martin with his noodles, me with the tea she had left on the stove. Not talking exactly, but not talking either, existing in the same space in a way that felt different from how we had existed in the same space before, easier, like something that had been held at a careful formal distance had moved, just slightly, just enough to change the quality of the air between us. She looked at the noodles. She looked at me. She looked at Martin. She said nothing. She went to the stove and started reheating the food she had actually prepared, but I saw her smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for something for a very long time and had just watched it begin. I almost missed the letter. It was at the bottom of the correspondence pile, which was unusual. The correspondence was always sorted by arrival date, and this one should have been near the top. It was as though it had slipped somehow, worked its way down through the other envelopes to the bottom of the stack, where it sat quietly waiting to be found last. Old seal, dark wax, and pressed into the wax a symbol that I recognized immediately because I had seen it before on the lid of a small wooden box in a library on a Wednesday evening that I was not supposed to open and could not stop thinking about. The same symbol, exactly the same. I held the letter for a long moment. The envelope was not addressed to Martin. It was addressed to the mansion, to Blackveil House specifically, which meant whoever sent it knew the address, but was not entirely sure who they were writing to, or was writing to the house itself as a statement, as a reminder that they knew where it was. I put the letter on top of the pile where it belonged, squared the stack, set it in the tray the way I always did, and then I went to find Mrs. Adela, because something told me, the same instinct that had sent me up those stairs on the evening with Vincent, the same instinct that had made me reach under that cabinet for a letter that turned out to be nothing, but that led me to a box that turned out to be everything. Something told me that this letter was the beginning of something, and that I needed to know more about what we were at the beginning of before it arrived properly. What I did not know yet was that upstairs, in the study, Martin had already seen the letter. He had seen it before I arrived that evening, and he had put it at the bottom of the pile himself.